From a global phenomenon, slightly going outside India now, just to give you an idea about what are these potential impacts that are happening in many parts of the world. So as I told you, it's not just about India getting affected. The entire world is facing this issue. So whether it's melting of glaciers in the northern hemisphere or in mountain regions in different parts of the world, in India, of course, the Himalayas are one of the biggest mountain ranges where the glaciers exist. It's about also melting of the polar ice caps. Then, as I told you, habitat loss of certain key species which do not exist today. When I say species, it's not about the faunal species, it's also about the floral species which have relevance for human beings in the context of food. So some of the food crops that we were all happily eating some years back don't exist today, partly because of the loss. The entire habitat is actually gone dry because of climate change. Depleting water resources, I think I've already mentioned that this is a serious concern in many parts of the world. Sea level rise, so therefore submergence of certain island nations, and I'll just show you a couple of interesting photographs here just to give you the context of what an island submergence can mean. And I think I have a picture and I'll show you that. You're probably very surprised to understand what is really that issue. It also would mean, as I told you, the spread of infectious diseases, pests, vector-borne diseases in different parts. So any shift or any change in the climate pattern can lead to a lot of pests coming into play, vector-borne diseases, leading to again a human health condition. And it's not about that, it's also about the pests getting involved with agriculture and creating problems for raiding crops, and then you don't have crops to fulfill the requirements of the human community. So there are multiple dimensions that are happening because of the impacts of climate change on different aspects. So here, it is often said that the science is telling us that we may be close to what is called a tipping point of not more than 2 degrees centigrade. The world is already talking about 1.5 in the context of the Paris Agreement. But I think the maximum one could even think of is maybe an allowance of up to 2 degrees. And anything beyond that could devastate ecosystems and economies. Yeah, it's a very scary proposition, no doubt about it. But that's real. That's exactly what's happening around us. And it could be close to what is called a tipping point, is that beyond that there is a point of no return for some of these issues. Is that, do we have enough time to reverse some of these problems that we are facing as far as ecosystems and our economies? As I told you all, this entire history of climate has transformed economies around the world for thousands of years, including today. So the way the climate is actually going to shape our economies is a very interesting concept to be seen for the future. So that tipping point is something critical in terms of what we are looking at from the science point of view. Just the context of why we are looking at it from a global perspective is a lot of people are at risk of water shortage, no doubt about it. And we're close to a phase where almost 35 to 40% of our species could go extinct till 2050 if the current rate of emissions continue. And this has been further elaborated recently in a research paper where it says it's not even 37 or 40%, but it's much higher now. So it seems to me that yes, in the coming years, a lot more species are likely to disappear. Needless to say, agricultural landscapes are going to change. There's going to be yield loss. As I told you, the impact of why forests were so important. It's also the changing profile or dynamics of forests are changing to what is called non-forest ecosystems. So there's the entire concept of forests, if it changes because of increasing impacts from temperature and rainfall, could create what is called a non-forest ecosystem, and that may not be the ideal situation always. It could be always the situation where we are looking at why a global forest ecosystem provides certain unique services to mankind, and you will probably lose that if it shifts to a non-forest ecosystem. So yes, very significant. Recently, the COP 16 or 15 on the Convention on Biological Diversity was held very recently, and unfortunately, they have not come to any decision even today. So the COP related to the CBD actually has started to think about how do we start restoring some of our ecosystems or to keep them as protected areas. So this is a concern, and the link between climate change and the forest services are equally important for us to realize. And of course, a large chunk of people today are at risk. Millions, I don't even have a number now. 25 to 50 million people is a very optimistic estimate, but I think there are much more people who are currently at risk due to coastal flooding and sea level rise. Spain recently had a major concern. Nigeria had a problem very recently, and I think there's been historically a lot of issues happening in many parts of the world whereby coastal flooding due to extreme climate variability is causing problems. And invariably, it's also noticed that wherever there are coastal systems, that is also the place where there is a very high human density. The number of people living around coasts are extremely high, and consequently it goes back to historical reasons, is that when explorers moved around the world looking for new places, the first point of contact was always the coastal region. So the moment they landed up on the coastal region, colonization took place. A lot of people ended up setting establishments there, and thereby you see some of these big coastal cities even in India: Mumbai, Cochin, Chennai, Kolkata, many other regions. And of course, you go to Southeast Asia, there's a whole range of cities there as well, and huge human densities out there, which means that the risk on coastal region and human beings is also extremely critical to understand. So global impacts are there worldwide now, as you see. And then you look at it, this is an interesting thing that I wanted to share about the spread of pests and disease. This is from the US, where the mountain pine beetle, it's a species which had its current range in the Rockies on the western side of the US, the Rocky Mountain ranges. But because of climate change, now the future range of this beetle is likely to shift to a more tropical southern United States, close to Texas really, where the temperatures are much warmer. And you can actually see why the shift of this beetle, which otherwise was in temperate region in the northern part of the Rockies, is now moving to a much more warmer climate down south. And what this kind of implication will bring to local crops is only a matter of conjecture, and we really do not know what's going to happen. So the spread of pests and diseases is actually real. Even in India, there's been a lot of work that's going on in terms of trying to understand how to prevent the spread of pests by addressing adaptation responses. So when I said that temperature and rainfall changes will happen and it has to be dealt with at a different level, it also means that how do we adapt to a changing regime of some of these pests which are going to be important in our lives today.